Okay, now, yes, with this particular lawyer, you get your second divorce half off, okay? And we do get a bad reputation, especially in the States, because we kind of did that to ourselves. And I'm a reformed ambulance chaser. I've tried probably close to 1,000 cases over the years, but now the focus is solely entrepreneurs and almost exclusively on Amazon. But we are down-to-earth business people. We are entrepreneurs just like you. Okay, so in order to keep hijackers, to get hijackers off your listing, you have to know a little about U.S. law, okay? So this is Global Sources Law School 101, okay? You're going to learn what is a trademark and what's a trademark violation, what is copyright and what's a copyright violation, this thing called trade dress we're going to talk about a bit, unauthorized sales and map pricing. And then we're going to talk about something, it's a term that I've actually adopted into our Amazon practice from New York divorce law, okay, called transmutation. And it is a 100% made up term, okay? Okay, what is a trademark, okay? What is a trademark? All of these things, when you see any of these marks, okay, and we're going to start with some of the basics, which a lot of you already know, and then we're going to get to some little more advanced issues that some of you may not be aware of. But if you're buying an Apple product or Starbucks coffee, you know it's going to be a bit bitter and you're going to overpay. Or if you get McDonald's, right, you know exactly what that hamburger is going to taste like around the entire globe, but you know the quality's not so hot. But you know exactly what you're going to get. Now, what is a trademark violation? If you should take this MasterCard logo and you stick it on your shirt or your hat, or you take that Starbucks logo and you have it put on your own mug at any factory on the planet, whether it's in China or India or Thailand, doesn't matter where, that is a violation. You cannot take somebody's logo, you cannot steal my logo and put it on your law firm. That is a trademark violation, okay? Now, what's not a trademark violation? If you're selling the real deal, okay? If you get the same factory that's making Starbucks mugs, and it's the same glass, and the same people, and the same factory, and you're buying it from the back door, like Mike talked about, you're not violating IP rights. You didn't steal it. You got it through a hole in their distribution, okay? Now, it may have sort of the same flavor to it, but it's not an IP violation. What is clearly not protected, okay? Now, I use this because supplements are huge in the U.S. We all want to lose weight, except we don't want to stop eating, okay? We'll eat any pill, any substance, buy any exercise device and hang our clothes on it, but we won't eat healthier. So this is a great example. Things that are not protected. That's a picture of a fruit that grows in nature, okay? I don't care what NatureWise said in this particular case. It's not something that is protectable because it occurs in nature. There's a very fancy jewelry design, a Van Arpef or something like that, where they have like a clover type jewelry. And this was a big, big case because their whole business is based upon this. The shape itself was not able to be protected. What they did with the shape was, and the court kind of cut hairs there. The name of a substance is not something that can be protected. How it's packaged, like GMO-free and a vegetarian shell, right? Most color schemes are not protected. Okay, there are no IP rights, no matter how many complaints you might get on your account. They're simply not rights that are protectable. The person making that complaint is making a baseless complaint. Okay? Now, the basics, the absolute basics, if you want to protect yourself, if you want to protect your brand, if you want to protect your income, okay, from hijackers, you got to start with the Billy basics, okay? You got to file for trademark protection. You develop a really cool logo like this, or a Starbucks logo, or whatever your private label is, file. You can do it yourselves. You don't have to hire me. You don't have to hire any other lawyer. The trademark application is easy. You can do it yourself, okay? Now, at the same time that you're doing your trademark application, whether you're doing it yourself or you're paying someone else to do it for you, you can also file through WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization. And for about $300 per country, you can get some really good substantial protection for your mark, okay? And that's what you want. Just like Mike said, and I agree 100% with what he said, you need protection where the problem's going to be, okay? Because this happens all the time. Clients come in, our factory is copying us, someone else is copying us, they're in China, they're in Vietnam, they're in Thailand, they're in India. Those factory owners don't give a hoot what the Southern District of New York has to say, because it's never going to reach back and touch them. So you don't care. So file WIPO. What you have a problem with WIPO is WIPO does not really coincide all that great with China, at least not yet. So China specifically, since there are so many factories in China, we do recommend that you use a Chinese lawyer to get it exactly right. WIPO's still pretty good, but you should really do it correctly where all the factories are. A lot of people, especially around the U.S., have a lot of bad things to say about the Chinese factories and counterfeits. And I think a lot of it is very closed-minded. Because if you have 95% or 90% of the factories in one place, not only are 90% of the genuine products going to be made there, but 90% of the counterfeits are going to be made there. Okay? So, Billy Basics, you want to protect yourself from hijackers, file where you're selling it, file it in the U.S., file it in Europe, okay? But you also got to file it where your risks are, and your number one risk by far is your own factory, okay? By far. So get the protection there. I agree with Mike. When you're doing those contracts, you choose what law is going to apply, and you identify where you're going to enforce it. Enforce it where it's being made, since that's your number one risk. Now, why? Okay? You got a lawyer standing in front of you. We generally don't charge by the hour, but sometimes we do. But that hourly rate inspires people to sue. Suing is probably never good for anybody in this room. Okay? Contracts are not meant, if they're written properly, are not meant for you to use to sue somebody. A well-written contract should be used for negotiating leverage if there's a problem. So you can point to the contract and say, here is your penalty for delivering late. Here's the court I'm going to bring you to, okay? It's in your province, okay? And when it comes to bringing those cases in China, the trend is towards enforcing the IP rights, because there's this whole battle going on around Asia as to who's going to be the IP capital of Asia, right? So you have Shenzhen and Hong Kong and Singapore and Taiwan all trying to enforce rights strenuously, because they're all trying to become, the next top dog for IP rights. There are all sorts of IP trading issues going on. So you can, I believe, count on the courts to enforce it if you file. Because as Mike said, China is first to file or first to register. It's not like the U.S. And the U.S. kind of mimics the U.K., where it's first to use, specifically first to file. And it's not just business people like us who get hurt if you don't register, if you don't file. Michael Jordan had a significant problem because he didn't file in China. President Trump, up until recently, had a significant problem for years over the name Trump in China. For some reason, it's all worked out, I think, over the past couple of weeks. Not here to talk politics, though. But it's a significant problem. Even if you're at the beginning stages, if you're not sure your product's going to be successful, okay, if you're putting your heart into it, even if you're putting just this much of your income into it, you might as well get the protection. Because if you're successful, someone's going to jump on it. So do the protection now. Okay. Copyright protection, You can file copyright in the United States. I'm not sure how to do it in China. There is a mechanism yet for it. But you certainly want to file your verbiage, okay, in the United States. There's a specific use online. You don't need to pay anybody to do it. Let me take a step back. Trademarks are the symbol. It's the Nike swoosh. It's the McDonald's M. Those are trademarks. Copyright is any creative work except scent, okay? It could be the verbiage on a package. It's certainly, if you're on Amazon, images are a significant issue, okay? And if you're creating your detail pages for your brand and someone takes your image and uses it to create another listing, right? That is clearly a violation. If they're using the words from your package in their description, that's a copyright violation. If your product is something that's kind of generic and you're including a newsletter in it, that written material in that newsletter, that's copyright. Copyright can even be like a dance, or anyone remember George Carlin's The 7 Dirty Words? That's, you know, see, the dirty words. That's all copyright, okay? Anything you create except for scent is copyright. Okay, trade dress is kind of a combination of copyright and trademark that hasn't been filed in any office, okay? It's the package shape, the color scheme. We dealt a lot with a particular humidifier that was in the shape of like a teardrop, and they made the conscious decision not to file for protection for that teardrop-shaped humidifier. Why? Trade dress does not expire, okay? It's a little bit harder to prove, but it doesn't expire. But trade dress is like the whole package where you look at it and you say, I know exactly what this is, but you choose not to file it for different strategic reasons. Okay, another way, one of the methods you're going to use your law degree here, your global sources law degree, to get rid of hijackers, is you're going to act on every single hijacker, okay? It doesn't take a lot of time. You can write the cease and desist email yourself and use the same one over and over and over again, okay? But you need to act on every single one. Okay, DIY, do it yourself, okay? So you're monitoring your listings, you see it, you have one or more or 15 or 20 hijackers. What do you do to help yourself, okay? You write a cease and desist letter, right? And it really is just stop selling my product. Stop violating my intellectual property rights, okay? And you want to identify, say, listen, we were the first to use this in the US. We have filed, okay? We have registered in China or wherever you think the hijackers are. Usually it's a mix. And you can tell by the delivery times, right? But you're going to write to them. Please stop selling. And you want to put a little bit of a threat, okay? Not I'm going to blow your head off. You don't need a cannon. But you want to identify Amazon's own policies that if you are infringing and I choose to report you, you can lose the ASIN. You're going to lose that ASIN. But you know what else? Unless you're a heavy hitter, your entire account can go down. Okay? So you inform them. You don't overtly threaten. Say, I don't want to make a complaint against you and put your entire livelihood at issue. Please stop selling my product. And that works, probably in 60, 70% of the times. Now, what you also want to do is I don't believe in asserting baseless complaints, because when I'm over here, right, representing these two gentlemen who are selling someone else's product, no offense, okay? I look at the complaint and say, oh, this is a baseless complaint. They just bought it off the back of a truck or out the back door of the factory, and I get rid of those complaints and knock them out of the box every day, right? So you want to look at your product and say, well, what IP rights do I actually have, right? What are they actually violating? Did they create a listing using my images? Is their packaging using my verbiage? Are they delivering a newsletter or an add onto that package that is mine? So you actually have some teeth to your complaint. It's also a violation of Amazon policy to assert baseless complaints. Okay, now we use that when I represent guys like these two, okay? Where I say, your complaint is baseless, and if you don't withdraw it, we don't want to make a complaint against your account and have you suspended. You also, and I'll show you how to do it, is to file a complaint on Amazon. If your cease and desist is ineffective, and bless you, if your cease and desist is ineffective, okay, you can go ahead and file the complaint yourself. You don't have to hire an IP firm to do it. It's easy. It's a form on Amazon. You may want to call and get some free advice, the secondary steps, because sometimes you're in sort of it feels like an endless cycle when it comes to Amazon making your complaints, but you can certainly file that complaint yourself. Okay. I don't really stick too much of a script, so some of this stuff I've covered already. You want to give the hijacker and your cease and desist the opportunity to amicably get off your listing. Okay? Now, sometimes you'll have someone who's on your listing, and it could be a small seller, it could be a major seller, and they've got a bunch of inventory. They've invested, their nest egg in this product, and they've got 5,000 units left. But you want to give them the opportunity, I believe, okay? We're all in business to make money and to do business. So you can work something, say, I'll tell you what, you can keep violating my right. Hope it's okay. You don't seem like a shy guy. I don't want you selling my product, but I understand you have 5,000 units left, okay? Let's make a deal. We want a license agreement. We want 25% of the profits. We know what it cost us, so we know what it cost you. Then we'll let you sell out, and then you stay away. We never make the complaint, or we take back our complaint, okay? And maybe you're giving up this much of your profit, but everyone's staying in business. And also, if you handle it in a courteous manner, right? You don't have to worry about this seller making bogus complaints, or his brother, or his cousin, or his mom, right? Giving you bad feedback, right? Because you put him out of work. Or you put his staff, they had to lay off people. A lot of the stuff that people do on Amazon, they don't realize has real world effects, right? If a Christmas is approaching and he's taken every penny and reinvested it into his store, into a product, and you have the ability to knock him out, he may have to lay off 20 people. And, as an attorney, not as tacky as the second divorce half off, okay? But if you have him dead to rights, right? But you have a single mom with a disabled child who's now losing her job, right? I'm going to use that. And I'm going to write to Samsung and say, hey, you know what? You're right. He did something wrong, but I don't think it's in your brand's interest for him to lay off this single mom with a disabled child. So let's work something out. So I think that's the way to go. In your cease and desist letters, I think you should certainly provide a deadline and stick with it, okay? Because it is a small community of sellers, even though there's, I don't know, 1.8, 3P sellers on Amazon right now. I mean, just tremendous numbers. But people still talk. In the US and the UK, there are a tremendous number of Facebook groups where they chat back and forth, right? When it comes to China, instead of being, 30 or 40 or 50, there's 3,000 or 4,000 people on each of these WeChat groups. So it certainly pays, but you put a deadline, and then you stick with it. And if either he doesn't work it out with you, or he doesn't stop selling, okay, then you cut his legs off, okay? Now, also inform whoever you're making the complaint in your cease and desist of their risks as well. In business, I believe everything is leverage. Sometimes you have more, sometimes you have less. People in this room are advanced sellers, negotiating. Generally, it's not wise long-term to go in with cannons blaring, but you know where your leverage is. And I think that when you inform someone of their risks and why it's in their interest to get off your listing, it helps move things along in an amicable fashion. But I guess as a lawyer, sometimes my sense of amicable may be a bit warped. Okay, now recognizing your IP rights. Images clearly, okay? Verbiage, the context, your packaging, your description, your instructions on how to use a product. All that writing, if you wrote it, you own it, okay? Now, other things that you may not know about is like licenses, okay? For people my age in the room, when we bought software and you went to the wherever you bought your new software, your latest version of WordPerfect or Word, and you thought you were buying that disk, you weren't. Okay? Not even when you bought the 3.5 floppy. Okay? You were buying a license to use that software. Okay? And in some of your products, you may want to build a license type issue into it, because licenses are treated entirely differently than products you can move around. Okay? Warranties, some warranties are really, really great to create intellectual property rights or intellectual property-like rights. Okay? Money-back guarantee. Okay? This gentleman can offer with his brand a money-back guarantee. Okay? Who cares? Right? Because this gentleman was selling the same thing. He said, you know what? I'll give you double your money back. Right? Where's the difference? Consumer gets no difference in that type of warranty. But if you build other types of warranties into your products, they do create a different delivery to the consumer. We've gone against, and nobody wins 100% of the time. Okay? Nobody. I can guarantee there's at least 2 people in this room that thought there was a product that they were just going to kill it on, and it didn't work out that great. Okay? So we lost the case. Okay? We did. You might not believe me, but I lost the case. Right? And it was against Wusthof Cutlery. And there are these pretty high-end knives. And we lost on the warranty issue because I had like a money-back guarantee. I was a big deal. My client will give them twice their money back. Right? And this argument has been successful with Amazon. But what they did is they actually offered to repair the knives. Like, I never heard of someone repairing a knife. Okay? But I guess some knives are so good that you'll repair them. But Wusthof built that into their product. So if you buy that knife from someone who's not an authorized Wusthof Cutlery seller, they won't fix your knives. Whether anyone uses it or not, who cares? Right? So you can build certain warranties into your products that actually nobody else can mimic. And there are some other things you can do as you become more advanced. Okay? I had a really, really great client. He had bought his Amazon business. Yes, you can buy and sell. You just can't let Amazon know about it. Okay? He bought it from a gentleman who had a son who was autistic, and he had created a charity, for children with autism. So when he bought the business, part of the negotiations were he's going to keep maintaining. And I think it was like 2.5% of the sales would go to the charity, right? Which you could do too, right? You can give money away just like this guy. But what you can't do is you can't match your 2.5% with his 2.5%, lump it together, and deliver it to the charity, right? Now, is that really an intellectual property right? Not really, okay? But it works, okay? And what's the goal? The goal is not necessarily to pass, the bar exam. Your goal is to get rid of the hijackers. So you find something with your product that you can deliver to the customer that nobody else can copy, okay? Like Wustof's factory, right? Like this charity, like a license, like your newsletter. If you're selling health products, like an exercise regimen or a quarterly something, okay? Something extra that someone else cannot mimic without violating your IP rights. Okay, I told you I was going to show you how you can make these complaints yourself so you don't have to pay my firm's very reasonable fees. Okay? You just run in Google, Amazon intellectual property complaint, right? And here it is. I know it's not too sharp, right? Here's the top of the page, about this page. In Amazon, for all the flaws and the obstacles and the erratic behavior of Amazon, they're also just a remarkable company by giving such tremendous opportunity, to millions of us, okay? And they create this great, easy way of making a complaint against somebody. Piece of cake. You go here, you read it, you fill out this form, you list the ASINs, right? You check a couple of boxes, I own the rights, you fill in the description, and you click. And that's it, you've made your complaint. Now, what's great about Amazon is that they give their employees all over the world the freedom to do their job as they deem fit in many cases, okay? And what that does is that sparks a lot of ingenuity, okay, and creativity, which is one of the reasons they come up with all these fantastic ideas, some which help us, some which don't, okay? But it also sparks very, very erratic responses. So you can go online, you can click to this page, you can fill out this form, you could put down all 15 of the hijackers that are on your listing, and you hit click, and that day they could be gone. Just like that, okay? So try it yourself before you go. I mean, when you leave, I like to say that after I speak, and a lot of times I'm speaking to sellers who are not as advanced as most of the people in this room, but I like them to feel empowered. I feel like they learned something, right? And that they can do more on their own, just like every other entrepreneur. That's why we're entrepreneurs. We like to do things for ourselves. We don't mind working 60, 70 hours a week, okay? We want the independence and the control. You can do this yourself, and you'll be successful a significant portion of the time. Now, if you fill this out and you're not successful, what's probably going to happen is just like a plan of action situation where you get what seems like a robotic email asking for more information, okay? And you answer the questions. Where's the trademark? Oh, here's my trademark application. And by the way, here's my WIPO approval also, right? Here's the design that I sent to the factory in China or India or Thailand or Vietnam, okay? And you keep showing them why you own these rights, and they should knock those other people off, okay? If you look at the lead times, Amazon often will want a test buy to show that they're not delivering to the consumer what you are. And that creates a problem because if it's a 4 to 6 week lag time on that delivery, right, you're losing out those sales and those profits, okay, for that period of time. But you just go to this form and you follow the directions. Okay, I highly suggest that you don't file baseless complaints, okay? And this is sort of, if you had like, Amazon selling, 101, this is like the second level course, okay? So, anyone know what map pricing is? Okay, who thinks map pricing is enforceable? Good. Map pricing is nonsense, unless you're the person who signed that contract. Back in 2007 or so, the United States Supreme Court said that it basically is not a life-saving device that our public needs. We're not going to enforce it. So don't file a complaint with Amazon saying they're violating MAP, because it doesn't exist for the most part in the United States. Unauthorized resellers, okay? In the United States, for the most part, there's something called the first sale doctrine. It means I can buy, I keep holding this like a microphone. You can buy the pointer from here, and as long as you sell it in the same condition, you can sell it here. It's not an IP violation, okay, in the vast majority of cases. So don't argue it, because it's nonsense. Most of the times, if you have a hijacker complaint, it's because you have holes in your distribution chain. You have lost control. Most people who wear glasses in this room, right, have at some point had glasses that were owned by Luxottica, right? Because they own like 95 or 90% of the eyeglasses that are out there. Luxottica, who I'm not a big fan of, because they make a lot of baseless complaints against my clients, if they know that they can move 1 million units through their distribution chain, they make 2 million, okay? Because they know they're going to go through back channels and back doors, and they're going to sell to a distributor who can't make a living unless he sells it to someone who's going to sell it on Amazon, and they know all this. But periodically, they'll do a sweep, and they'll knock people off, okay? So if it's a hole in your distribution chain, I would rein yourselves back, because your goal is not necessarily to get rid of the hijackers today. Your goal is to get the hijackers off and keep them off, okay? So I wouldn't argue this unauthorized seller. Also, owning a listing, okay? Have people in this room created their own detail page? Okay. When you created that page, when you clicked, you uploaded those images, you waived all your intellectual property rights to the images and the verbiage, okay? So you don't own anything, okay? You don't own that detail page. It's a page in somebody else's catalog. And you don't want to open yourselves up to getting them off, to getting yourselves knocked off. Okay, so these are things you shouldn't argue. Okay. No one likes the wizard? Thank you. The bald guy in the room is the only one who recognized it. Okay, now, this is sort of things that we do, and I'm happy to share with you so you can help yourselves and feel a bit empowered. And if you're in advanced sale, you feel like you walked out and you learned something, okay? You have the ability to take things that are not intellectual property rights and turn them into intellectual property rights, at least as far as the Amazon platform is concerned. And just like those guys surrounding the plane, right, we're going to take out the hijackers, you can do it too, okay? So your contract language, okay? Now, I just said 5 minutes ago that map pricing is not an IP issue. It's not enforceable. United States Supreme Court, okay? Justice Scalia was the deciding vote in this, okay? Map pricing's nothing. But we've seen success where if it's on your documents creating the product, it's on your contracts with your distribution network, it's on the receipts, it's on the boxes, you're sticking this thing on everything you can, wherever those products are going through the food chain, right? That your map pricing, it is, okay? I am taking my bald wizard and transmutating map pricing into an IP right, right? And it works, right? So add that to your documentation, right? Is it going to work forever? I don't know. I know it works now. Now you can use that as just another tool in your arsenal to get hijackers off your listing. Put it in, if it's not in today, add it tomorrow, okay? You're flying home tomorrow, add it after the weekend, okay? Add what you want into the contract language. Why? Now, even though these two bad guys, these two hijackers, right, are selling your product, and they never even saw that document, right? But you want to just shoot those hijackers off your plane? You submit that to Amazon. And you say, whoa, 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 this is by agreement, okay, that anybody who comes into contact with my product is agreeing that map pricing is an intellectual property right. And the people that are reading these things, where mostly the people who are reading this stuff and evaluating whether they're going to knock off a hijacker or not, are located in India, Ireland, or Costa Rica, okay? They look at it and say, smells like a duck, it walks like a duck, must be a duck, must be an IP right. Knock these guys out, okay? You can do that with map pricing. You can do it with other aspects of your product that they're guaranteeing, such and such, the repair facility, the license, the newsletter, that kind of stuff. They're agreeing just by being in your distribution chain, whether you want them there or not, that is now an intellectual property right. I talked about donating and matching portions of sales, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. I don't believe that I need to be the smartest guy, in the room, and I'm generally not. But I do need to sit on the shoulders of the guys who are, okay? And Amazon is all about riding the trends, okay? So if this is working now, do it. If it starts to be a little ineffective later on, then you pivot. Just like you don't marry a product. You're marrying your business, but you don't marry a particular product. So this works now, okay? Now, another thing that's been working for a while is add-ons to your product, okay? Maybe you're selling, this bottle of water, right? But it's not just this generic water, right? It also comes with this cool glass, right? And the two together, right? And I don't know why it works. Like, I don't get Amazon's rationale because it's a generic glass and it's generic H2O, but it works. This worked tremendously well with people who are selling Raspberry Pi computers, right? Because the Raspberry Pi computer is this really cheap computer, but you kind of buy it in parts and it's used in kits and children use it in schools to learn basic programming. But a lot of sellers, they were doing, say, okay, we're going to sell the Raspberry Pi, but with this particular card and this particular switch and all these different add-ons, and now it became unique. And even if other sellers were matching with the same parts and same cards, Amazon was recognizing this as a mechanism for getting rid of hijackers. And we did it successfully on, I don't know, 2 or 3 dozen different cases. So it's something you can do to get rid of hijackers by simply adding something to your product. Another thing you could do is sort of stay ahead of the hijackers, okay? The 2017 Watson's Water has this really cool, right? But it's selling so well that you have 15 hijackers selling it with the green cap, right? So make the cap blue, right? Or add Watson's to it, or add a spigot on the top, okay? Add your logo to the top, right? Because now their products are not the same as yours, right? You're adding something that's your IP, your trademark to it, right? And ultimately, you know, Amazon was always consumer, consumer, consumer. Customer's always right, customer's always right, okay? Well, now the customer's not getting from the hijackers what they're getting from you, because you've changed it a bit, okay? And if you created the detail page, you control it, okay? So it's another way you can set yourself up to get rid of hijackers. Okay, some of the things you can use, this thing leverage I talked to you about, is the risk of suspensions, okay? You're all at risk of suspension, okay? Everyone in this room, doesn't matter whether you're doing $10,000 a month, you're doing $250 million a year. The one thing I've learned from speaking at these events is that most Amazon sellers live in fear of that email, okay? So do the hijackers, okay? Use it, okay? Another thing uses leverage, right, from your Global Sources Law School 101, is that there was a case, Apple versus Samsung, okay? And this was a big battle, right? I mean, 2 giant, giant corporations. Each one has more money than many countries on the planet, right? And Apple said, Samsung, you sold so many of the Galaxy, whatever number it was, using our technology. It was the rounded corners like the iPhone. It was the icons looked something similar to it. It was the gyroscopes inside of it, right? And Samsung said, no, 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 no. They didn't buy it because of that. They bought it because of our great battery, because it's bigger than yours or it's faster than yours. And the court said you can't figure out why the consumer bought the Samsung versus the Apple. And Mr. Samsung, you now have to give back 100% of your profits from day one. Okay? From day one, the first time you sold a product that may have violated your intellectual property rights, use that as leverage. And you can write to him and say, hey, listen, I don't know if you know this. I'm not a lawyer, but if I'm right and you're wrong, you owe me 100% of your profits. And if it was willful, lawyers call it treble damages. It's triple damages, plus attorney's fees. Right? Now, not all lawyers charge reasonable rates. The attorney's fees can be very substantial. But these are the things that you can use as leverage, because most sellers simply want the hijackers off. You don't need a cannon. You need like a sniper rifle. Okay? These are the things. Say, listen, I understand. Sell out your inventory, but if you're not gone by such and such a date, okay, this is my leverage against you. Okay? And negotiate them off. If you choose to do so, and generally it's not really wise to get into litigation, but you can. Orders to show cause. Are there any lawyers in the room other than me? Yeah, the guy from New York, of course, right? So, an order to show cause exists in all the federal courts and in most state courts. What it says is you go to court by yourself. Like most times you sue somebody, you have to say, here's notice, I'm suing you for A, B, C, and D, and the court won't do anything until you prove something. An order to show cause turns that on its head. And it says, dear court, order this now, right, to protect me. And if you can convince a court to do that, right, if you have to go that far, or you just want to use it as leverage, the court can say, you're right, okay? We're going to give Amazon an order, freezing their account, freezing their money. And by the way, if you're using PayPal or credit card processing companies, or Amazon's releasing your money to World First, or Currency Direct, right, or Payoneer, or any of these companies, the order will go to them too. Say, hold all the money. Don't release it. You keep it, right? And now that hijacker is either a significant threat or he's really sucking wind, all right? Because he's at risk, and again, use it as leverage. He's at risk of being suspended. He's at risk of having his money held by Amazon. He's at risk of his Payoneer, Currency Direct, or World First account being frozen, right? His inventory is also going to be stuck, right? And this is really good leverage, right? So if you're right, you can use this in as gentlemanly fashion as you can to get rid of these hijackers. Also, if anyone emails me, I will provide you with similar cases where you can write to them. You know, dear hijacker, I understand that you also have a mortgage and a car payment and maybe salaries and payroll, but you're infringing upon my rights. I would like you to stop selling and get off my listing by such and such a date. If you do not get by such and such a date, I'm going to seek relief, as in this case attached, where they froze your account, froze your products, froze your money, froze your payroll, okay, froze your World First, okay? Please contact me so we can amicably resolve this issue. Okay, I want to check my time. I'm not checking for messages or text or notes from my wife. I'm trying to check my timing. I hope I've given some of the less experienced sellers the information that as you gear up and as you ramp up, what you should be doing either yesterday or tomorrow. For the more intermediate sellers, a little more information, and I hope to the advanced sellers, to the big guys in the room, the big men and women in the room, I hope I've also given you some information, and I've left some time if there are any questions. I am not billing for the time at all. Yes?
You briefly mentioned trade dress and that people would technically not register trade dress. Why would they do that?
Trade dress doesn't expire.
Okay.
If it's yours, if you've always been green with the green and yellow droplets and this exact design, it exists. It's endless. On the other, it's a bit more difficult to prove. Like if I'm a lawyer and I'm actually involved in litigation, I'd prefer to have the trademark filed in the USPTO and also WIPO protection, because it's something, you know, date stamped by the government and ordered. I'm sorry, did everyone hear the question? All right, the question was, why would someone go with trade dress, more or less?
Why would they not?
Or why would they not file and rely upon trade dress? Okay? A couple of reasons. One, it doesn't expire. It could be a strategic decision. But I guess more often than not, as they were starting out, they didn't spend the extra money or they didn't have the money. And they didn't know it was going to work. I mean, you may think this is going to be a great product, right? But you don't want to put the extra money into it, the extra effort.
So it's kind of a first to use type of thing?
First to use. US, UK, first to use. Let me take also a step back, because I forgot something. Are many sellers here selling in the UK? Okay. Permission to sell a product in the UK is I hope to be a solicitor in about a year or so, and you know the barristers get the wigs, but I'm only going to be a solicitor. Permission to sell is often a part of the intellectual property rights in the UK, where it's not in the US. Yes?
Thank you for the presentation. I just had a question on copyright images for some products. Let me use an example like a black t-shirt. Okay, so let's say your own brand, your black t-shirt, you hire a model to do a photo for your black t-shirt. You can't see the label or anything in it. Someone has taken that image and used it on exactly the listing. Have you seen cases of people claiming to Amazon on that? How do they handle it? Because how do you copyright like your own photo shoot?
Most people don't file their copyright. A lot of people do, but I would say the majority of sellers, I'm sorry. The question was, if there's a model in like a black t-shirt, a fairly generic product, and someone else starts to use it, how do you prove it?
Well, A, how do you check, or how do you file your own copyright images? And then B, if someone, if you do file a complaint on a competitor listing, how does Amazon treat that? Because they don't see the brand label or anything on the image, even though you pay for the photo shoot.
Okay, how do you check to see if someone else is using the image? If someone else is using it, how do you prove that you had it first? Okay? One, even though most people, you can file, most people don't. They should, but they don't. You would have to, first you would just claim it on Amazon, and you click a box that everything you're saying is true under penalty of perjury. I mean, even though there's no Amazon police, okay, they have you click this thing that's under penalty of perjury, even though it's nothing enforceable in Amazon, okay? When it comes time to prove it, you would look back on your records. You know, more modern pictures, you can actually, there's geostamps and that sort of thing involved, right? Or you may have an invoice or just your testimony or an affidavit from the model, if it should go that far. And that's how you're going to establish it. Also, you can generally show when you uploaded it to wherever you used it. That becomes sort of, you have certain evidence, and sometimes the he said, she said, but again, the goal is not like to win a battle in court. Your goal is to get rid of the hijacker. So if it really is yours and it predates their use of it, you're using that as one bullet, you know, in your rifle to get those hijackers off your airplane.
Thank you, that's great. Okay, so just a follow-up question on that. Have you seen cases like that? And obviously with Amazon, when you submit a request, that some dude in some random office sending you a generic email. In a case like that, what would they actually ask for? Would they ask for records of, you know, show your contract for the photo shoot, show the timestamps of when you started doing it? Just curious.
Okay, gentlemen, also what Amazon would ask for. Amazon doesn't really ask for anything specific, okay? What they generally do is if these vague emails, a lot of the emails say, we're not going to tell you why we make our decisions and blah, blah, blah. But they ask what the support is for your contention, or give us more information, like you file the forms. Like here, I think it's either that the big one, or it might be a little bit further down the screen, right? And you would put a description in there, okay, about why and when and how. And then you'll get an email back from Amazon if they don't knock them off saying, give us more information about when you created these images. And you could put in sentence form, paragraph form. On, you know, October 1st of 2014, I went out and I hired this beautiful model and I gave her a size medium black t-shirt, and we shot the pictures on the Santa Monica Pier in California, and I used a professional photographer, and that's how you would substantiate it. But again, since Amazon doesn't necessarily give you exactly what they're looking for, you can give them what you have. Oh, this guy.
Thanks. My question is this. If you have a private label and you send things into FBA and somehow they lose things and they lose the whole shipment, but then someone buys that shipment and starts selling it, how do you stop that? Because they're saying, I bought it from Amazon. Go F yourself.
Yes. Well, there's a couple of different things. Everyone heard that part? Especially go F yourself, screw you, whatever. First of all, I certainly believe that practically nothing gets lost at FBA. What happens is you deliver the units, and sometimes it's our fault. We don't have your stickers right, or the packaging is wrong, or the weight is off, right? But if they can't find it, they keep it. They don't throw it out, right? What they do, other stuff, they say they're going to destroy your products. They don't. They sell it through, what's it called, a Whoop, right? It's their liquidation. They hate liquidation. In that case, it's not necessarily an IP issue, but you're not supposed to buy Amazon and sell on Amazon. You see that? Oh, you're great. You bought my stuff. It's my stuff. There's no way you got it through, right? It's not counterfeit because it's mine, but you bought it from Amazon. You're reselling it. Or you bought it from a liquidator. And Amazon is not into that these days. In fact, I don't know if you guys have noticed. I don't know. Most people in this room, I think, are private labels. But the big liquidators are changing their names, right? Because Amazon sellers can't have invoices that say 888 liquidator, right? Because Amazon doesn't take those receipts. So, genius, change our name. Now we're a distributor, 888 distributor. That's how I would handle that. But again, it's so Amazon, for all the greatness that it provides and all the opportunity they provide, is very erratic, right? So I would think that would be a winning argument. I'd probably say in 75% of the cases it would be. The other 25% because you had different human beings sitting in Hyderabad who decided something different. Recouping inventory is an art. Yes.
When Amazon pays you for the inventory, Like, are they allowed to resell it, actually?
Amazon, we have seen, and it's not written policies, just from doing this 6, 7 days a week. They get a lot of products and people don't know how they got them. They certainly have lost products. All of a sudden you're out 200 units and they've got 200 units, right? Mazel tov. What do you do about it, right? Sometimes it may pay just to lay low. Like sometimes you have to, let yourself get screwed a little bit for the long term, but you don't want to pick a fight because you don't know the person on the other side is going to do a real in-depth evaluation, find something wrong with your account, right? On the other hand, you may say, you know what? Screw that. You have me using bad language now. Screw that, right? Screw that, okay? I make them a lot of money. I want my 200 units back. Generally, what they will do, especially if you're involved in commingled inventory or inventory that's available, from other sellers or from Amazon itself, is they'll just move it from this column to that column, and all of a sudden, he has his 2,000 units back, miraculously.
I've heard that, have you heard that FBA, they commingle everything. It doesn't matter what they say. Because if they sell it and you don't have it, they're going to go to somebody that doesn't take it.
Okay. This is more like a suspension conversation I'm happy to have, but if any of you are not opting out of commingling, you are out of your minds. Okay? Because you're selling this really high quality glass and you have it delivered to an FBA warehouse in California, right? And I'll switch, man, I'll switch. And this gentleman is selling like a piece of crap, right? But his is in New York, and you get a sale in New York, they deliver his piece of crap because you allowed commingling, and a customer complained that his glass is a piece of garbage. You're the one getting that ding on your account.
Well, I'm saying if you're not in the commingle, then they do it either way.
I haven't seen any suspensions from it. I wouldn't say it doesn't exist because they're very savvy. They save a lot of money. But I haven't seen anyone get a suspension when they've opted out of commingling for someone else's product. And there's people on my team that know how to do it. You can actually track where the product came from. We did this with an Apple product where it turned out Apple's relentless. I would not be involved in Apple products at all if I was a seller. Not a single thing. It's not worth it. Apple goes after you with a vengeance, and we showed Apple's lawyers. His name is Rob Potter at Kilpatrick Townsend in New York, and we did the whole research and we tracked it and said, listen, the phone you're complaining about wasn't our client's phone. It actually belonged to Amazon, right? He said, hey, no problem, CJ. How's the wife? How's the kids? I'll get back to you in a couple of days. Gets back and goes, hey, man, sorry. Apple said no. They won't withdraw their complaint. I'm like, what do you mean they won't? They said no. It's not our phone. Those are my marching orders. So in that case, since it wasn't, we tracked it, they reinstated without Apple's consent.
Hi. You said that you can protect the copy of your listing as well? Like if another seller creates a new listing, but they put the same copy of yours?
Yeah, if they're taking your copy, right, if they're cutting and pasting, or even if it's so similar that it would confuse a consumer, they violated your copyright. And you can go to this form, right, and you would actually put in, here's our verbiage, here's theirs, right? It's a violation. Knock them down. And Amazon, okay, there's in the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, right? And what it did, and it's kind of archaic, right? It protects Amazon, it protects eBay, it protects the platform, where it basically says that if this rights owner, who's a really good business person, he's an upstanding citizen, right? And he makes a complaint, okay, against this gentleman, all Amazon has to do is throw up their hands and say, you're off until you work it out. That's why that email says, here's the rights owner's email, work it out with him. We're not going to let you sell. We don't want any liability ourselves, but work it out. And that's generally the first step. But that would be clearly a copyright violation, clearly, and you would not get them knocked off at least that product, right? And again, I would always try and work it out first. I'm probably the only trial lawyer in America who's telling you to stay out of court, okay? Stay out of court. You tell them, listen, first a cease and desist. Here's ours, here's yours. If you take it off within 7 days or you contact me, we can work something out. I won't make a complaint and put your livelihood at risk. But that would be clearly a violation.
Thank you.
Back here. Hey there. So you mentioned about map pricing. It's not enforceable in a court of law at all, but you kind of suggested if you give the impression to Amazon that you have map pricing, they might enforce it. Did I get that correct?
Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. It is not, unless you sign that map contract, it cannot generally be enforced against you. Okay, now if you signed it, then it's contract law and it can be enforced against you. But if you didn't sign it, if you got it someplace else in the holes in the distribution chain, it's not enforceable. But you're not in court, right? You're sitting there with your rifle trying to get rid of hijackers, and this works, right? And I've never seen Amazon's legal department or in my conversations with the lawyers with them getting involved in this type of thing. It's like the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing or even cares. The lawyers are not involved in these issues as far as I'm aware. So by putting it on your invoice, does it make it IP right? Of course not, right? It's transmutation, right? It's my little wizard here, right? This guy really doesn't exist. Okay, it's BS, but it works.
So, like, what would you put it on? Like, would it, just for
I'd put
argument's
it-
sake, like putting it on a PO to a Chinese supplier, and even though it has absolutely no relation to the hijacker?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because what are you doing with it, right? We all know it's transmutation. It's a made-up word, right? But when you're trying to get rid of your hijacker and you're attaching the attachment after attachment, you're just saying, listen, here's on our purchase order. And by the way, here's on every document with a distributor, and here it's on all these agreements, and here's 10 pages of stuff, right? And if it's 10 pages, it must be right, right? Now, listen, my job is to be persuasive and to get you more profitable by getting rid of your hijackers. So do I agree that it's intellectual property? No, right? This guy doesn't exist, but it's working right now. So you could be right. You could be right and make more money. You could choose between the two. I don't think that by adding it, I don't think you're doing anything morally wrong. I do think it's morally wrong to assert some complaints that are just entirely baseless. But I guess everyone draws their own lines.
Awesome. Thank you.
One more question. You mentioned earlier when you upload all your pictures and everything to Amazon, basically you're giving up all your IP rights, so someone else is selling your ASIN because they get it through some other big distribution channel that you might sell to. Is there any way around it besides this, or?
Yeah, the only thing you can argue is that those are my pictures, that's my verbiage, that's my detail page.
And the Amazon, even though Amazon says that they own all the IP rights, it doesn't matter, or?
Yes, because when you upload them, you're waiving them, for the entire history of man, okay? And going through the future, right? You're waiving it as far as that. So don't argue it, because if you argue that, they're selling on our images, right? All someone's going to do on the other side is say, cut and paste Amazon. They waived it. They don't own those images anymore. Screw them. So you argue something else. I mean, you're not purposely going to aim a gun at a hijacker and shoot blanks, right? So you argue something else. Like a license, some newsletter, an add-on that you have, a real good enforceable warranty. Just something else. You cannot argue that a hijacker should come off because they're on your listing and they're using your image. You put your image up there. What's also interesting, the images, right? Violating intellectual property law is what is usually called like a strict liability. Like you may not know you're stealing someone's image, but you did and you're responsible for it, right? But it is specific to the person that did the act, right? So if this gentleman here created a detail page with your images, he violated your IP rights, right? But this guy over here starts selling on his listing, right? He didn't do anything wrong. He's not the one that uploaded the images, right? Whether he did it on purpose or didn't realize, he's still responsible. This gentleman's not. So that's one of the kind of weird kind of gaps in the rules there.
So just to clarify, images on the same listing is not an issue, but images that are taken and used on different listings is an issue.
Within Amazon.
If you took someone else's image and put it up on your listing, right,
Copyright.
that's a copy. Even if it's for their product,
Right.
they own that image. But he'd be okay jumping on it.
Right.
Yes. So get someone else to create the listing.
There are stolen images of my kids all over the world now. Literally.
That must be beautiful kids. Count your blessings.
Yeah. Are you sure they're your kids?
But what do they say? You started this. You always know who your mother is.
Okay, I'm pretty sure we're out of the scope of
Oh.
the original. Back on the right.
I have a question regarding add-ons. If a seller has a product and they have like 4 different add-ons, and a competitor on another listing does the exact same thing, is that baseless or was that violating IP?
It works. Raspberry Pis were a great example because you'd have someone who matched it with certain cards, and Raspberry Pis have all these kind of crazy add-ons to build your computer. And to me, it would be no violation. Like, I wouldn't mind having either side of that fight, but it worked.
I've seen that many of my images have ended up in Alibaba. So, is there something that can be done?
You can, but I think you would want to make a real big business decision, really counter and say, okay, risk versus reward, right? Could you get it taken care of? Yes, the Chinese courts are enforcing IP rights. I'm not so sure how it works with images in China, but what's the gain? You know, if the litigation's going to cost you, the effort's going to cost you, you know, $5,000, $10,000, and those are reasonable rates, right? Is it worth it to you, and why? I don't. That's a decision you'd have to make.
I was thinking more like to just contact Alibaba with some documentation or maybe register the image in China and then contact Alibaba with that information.
Like Amazon does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you
I don't
need-
know. I don't deal with it, and I believe when it comes to this sort of, you know, we're all in a fairly immature industry. Okay, if anyone says they actually know exactly what's going to happen, they're full of crap. But it sounds like they should take it off, but I don't know what would happen.
What are your thoughts on brand gating as a way to stop hijackers?
I think what do I think of brand gating as a way of stopping hijackers? When it came out, right, Amazon had this, we're going to be transparent, we're going to treat all sellers the same, big and small, Nike and private label, right? And my experience is they have not done that at all, okay? Like, not zero, but pretty close to zero, where your smaller private labels are just not getting it, right? Initially, it was touted as you apply, you have the trademark, you have the intellectual property rights, we'll brand gate to protect the consumer, right? But then you weren't getting it. Then there was this transmutation that said, no, not only do you have to have the intellectual property rights and a history of selling, but you have to already have an existing problem with hijackers, right? And there were many applications, and my office isn't doing it, but I know another lawyer in Kentucky who's doing it, and they changed the rules, and even then they're not granting it to the small brands. So I think theoretically, if they deployed it in a more efficient manner, right, and gave the smaller brands the same benefits as the larger ones, it would be great, because it doesn't, once you have that, you can't sell without, without the Almighty's opinion, without their okay. So I think it'd be great if it ever gets online. Right now, not seeing it.
Any more questions for CJ?
What about if we have a brand and someone's probably put our brand name in the keywords in the back end, so it pops up right in the mix, and I look through their list.
Violation.
Okay, so
Violation.
yeah, perfect, because they're knockoffs, and yeah.
In fact, we see that a lot. We're successful. I don't think it's really an IP violation, but again, who cares, right? It works to knock them off.
So
That's
just
in their
go-
back.
You just go through that little form right there,
Yep, right there.
Yeah.
Well,
right there.
You know
Okay.
where it was.
Yeah, I got it. Perfect.
yes.
I think we're guessing that our brand names are in their keywords. We can't prove it. It's just when we type in our brand name, that pops up, so we're assuming.
Well, that's a safe bet, and there are people who can do it. I don't know how. We have a couple of different analysts, but I know it can be done, and you can actually I don't know how they do it, but you can see it. But if it's coming up as you run your brand, it's in their back end.
Can you touch again on using your wizard and transmutation add-on strategy with warranties to prevent other people from hijacking your IP?
Okay. If you're taking your product and you're adding certain things to it, right, so that yours is unique. Like I use the Raspberry Pi. You know what the Raspberry Pi is? Okay, using the Raspberry Pi computer, and you're adding certain cards, a video card, a sound card, right, to it. Amazon has recognized it as something that only you are delivering, okay? And they recognize that as almost like an intellectual property right. And you can use that effectively to knock off hijackers, even if they're selling, like the same video card or a similar video card with their Raspberry Pi. When it comes to a warranty, right, the warranties often say, you have these benefits of buying from an authorized reseller, right? And I said a few moments ago, an authorized reseller is nothing, right? In Yiddish, it's bubkis, right? But if your warranty says something that nobody else can mimic, like Wusthof and their repair facility, okay, or membership in a club or a license or a newsletter or something that you can deliver, then it is something you can use, because the customer's not getting the same thing when they buy it from somebody else, because Wusthof won't fix their knives. So that's the sort of the add-ons and the good warranties versus the very weak type of warranty.
Along those lines, sorry, can you elaborate on the charity part of that?
Sure. The charity thing wasn't even my idea, okay? We had a client, and we talk to clients, okay? There's no way that anybody can really help you address your business without your involvement, okay? If you think you go to any law firm, if you go to one of the $500 ones that Mike talked about, right, no one's going to know your business as well as you do, ever. So as we're talking, they said, oh, by the way, you mentioned this charity. Now, I have a favorite charity that, that I tout at certain events. It's called the Ty Lewis Campbell Foundation, okay? Ty Lewis Campbell Foundation, if you want to make a donation. Amazon Smiles, okay? It's a great charity. I'm touting it now. I'll answer your question. A very good friend of mine lost their child to brain cancer, and they turned tragedy into this great foundation. They raise a lot of money, and they donate it to find a cure for pediatric cancer. I forgot your question.
You've elaborated on the first part, the add-on.
Oh, yeah, the donation. Yes. So this client bought the business from a guy who had a disabled son and he'd donate money. He said, okay, I'll buy the business, and part of the deal was he would do this, and he kept donating. It was like 2.5%. Then he also would match it, right? But he would wait, and he would lump it all together and deliver his own piles of money. Nobody else could deliver his piles of money. And this was something that Amazon bought to knock the hijackers off. I thought it was genius. We argued it. It was his idea. We wrote it up, and the hijackers were gone.
Was that only valid though, because in the listing they promoted that if you buy this product from me, there's going to be this subsequent donation.
I don't even know if it was in the listing, to be honest with you. I don't remember if it was in the listing or not.
So you could give away a promotional item inside your, whatever you're shipping to your customer, and that would make it different enough.
You can, but there are also issues. There are certain rules about what you can use as promotional items. But yes, that does change the game. It's a game changer a bit. So as long as you're not violating other rules, that does do an add-on that only you can deliver. You got to be careful. I don't know the promotional there. I recognize the issues there. Yes. Listen, the reason why it works is because the guy who's getting that email, right? He or she is sitting at his desk and he goes, oh yeah, that's a good reason to get rid of this hijacker. Think. That's it. That's your goal, right? Like, I'm not here to argue morality right now. I'm here to teach you how to get rid of hijackers. This works.
Anything else? No? Okay, that was quite a few. So thank you, CJ, very much.